We've got to stop talking.
Yeah, I know. That's true.
We are now live, so I will be fielding any questions and sending them to you, but take it away.
Okay, thanks, Marissa. Oh, wait.
I think we're ready to go. We're ready to go.
So do you want to, should I introduce?
Welcome, everybody. Welcome.
Yeah,
we didn't make a plan for this. So Meg and I are scrambling because we didn't make a plan for this. So I'm Casey Dyer, and thank you for coming. If you've come to celebrate my new book, that is super exciting. And I'm here tonight talking to my dear friend Meg Tilly, and we're also celebrating her new book, which came out this year. Which is called The Runaway, Heiress. She doesn't want to talk about it. She wants to talk about.
We're celebrating your book. It's your book launch.
Okay.
Okay.
All right,
hold up your book, Karen.
Here's my book.
Here's your new book.
My book. There we go.
Accidental Odyssey. Woohoo!
Woohoo! Oh.
Congratulations!
Thank you. Confetti. Like, what more could I ask for?
That's it.
That's awesome. Thank you. All right. Well, I just wanted to say that, Meg is an accomplished and prolific author as well, and has a new book out herself. And so we're going to just talk books and writing and we're old buds. And so we'll just, we're hoping that we don't wander off too far off the trail. But we're just going to talk about the experience of writing these books. And then we're going to take some questions, and we've got help here from Marissa Backlund. So first of all, we should probably say thank you so much to Love Sweet Arrow, which is the bookstore that is sponsoring this event. And a bookstore that's all about romance books. I mean, that's so lovely. And it's in a tiny little suburb of Chicago. And so thank you to Love Sweet Arrow, and hi to everybody who's coming in from there.
Were you able to send book plates or something to them? So do they have? Okay.
So they have book plates, and they also have these cute little pins, and they've got signed book plates and bookmarks and postcards. I think they have a package.
So if people order it from them, now are they going to is Marissa going to put a link to Love Sweet Arrow so they can order it?
Yeah.
From, get all those
why don't there she is. She's going to put it in the chat.
Okay, perfect.
It showed up in the chat. So that's great. So if you want to order it from them, you can. And if you can't order it from them, sometimes it's hard to order books across the border, especially for the Canadians who are watching, or people who are outside of Canada and the US. You can order it from your local bookstore. Just go in. If they don't have it in stock, they can bring it in. So my book is published by Berkeley, which is an imprint. Yeah, and it's an imprint of Penguin Random House, and they're a big company, and so they have lots of books, and they will send it to all the independent bookstores. So definitely ask for it if you don't see it, and they will bring. And it's really good, actually.
Doesn't Penguin? Can't you order from Penguin as well?
You can,
but because Love Sweet Arrow is sponsoring this. I don't have any more confetti. Okay.
Here's the book.
Your book launch. Try them first. And also you get extra fanciness.
Yeah, lots of little surprises to go with them too.
Karen.
Okay.
So
we're going with Casey tonight.
Oh, I'm so oops.
Yeah, you blew it already.
I did. I had asked before, because for those of you who don't know, I know you, but her author name is Casey Dyer.
Yes, that's right.
So Casey,
always lowercase. Yeah,
all
definitely.
Lower.
Yeah.
Casey, so I have to say, first off, before we get into how you wrote it, I love this book.
Oh,
I love Accidental Odyssey. To me, it's I've read your books, as you know. And you've done Finding Fraser, and you did Around the World in 80 Days. Was it Around the World in 80
days? 80 Days to Elsewhere, that one.
Right, and that's when you first introduced this whole idea of the travel thing.
Yeah.
But this one, they're all good, but this one, I was like, holy smokes, it's my favorite. But it's my favorite. It's so engrossing. For those of you who are home like me, or maybe you're scampering out to somewhere close where you both are, this gives you a chance to travel. It gives you a chance to travel, armchair travel, and it's gorgeous. Now, here's my one of my million questions. That'll
good.
Here's my question.
All right.
Did you go to Greece? Did you go to Italy? I mean, these places, or do you do like where I travel on the internet? Because it seems so specific.
Yeah.
And so
so
it's tell me, how did you do
so
it?
it's
I know for Finding
combination.
Fraser, you went to Scotland.
Yes. Well, I've been to Scotland a bunch of times.
Right.
My daughter lives in Scotland. So I have family there. And but even before, when my kids were still small, my very first book was set in Scotland. So I went to do my research trip to the West Highlands and that book was called Seeds of Time. So for this one, for An Accidental Odyssey,
show me the cover.
Here's the cover of An
Accidental
Accidental Odyssey.
Yeah.
So for this one, what happened was I wrote 80 Days to Elsewhere, which is also an ex libris novel. And it's the story of 80 Days is about a young woman who, in order to save her family bookstore, accepts a position where she has to race around the world. She has a lot fewer than 80 days to do it in, following in the footsteps of Phileas Fogg from Around the World in 80 Days. So in order to write this book,
yes,
I went around the world in 2019.
You went around the world.
I did. Okay. All the way around the world. So,
I read that book and and it was really good. This one, I'm like, so did you go to Italy and Greece?
So yes. So, but my plan for Accidental Odyssey was in the spring of 2020 to make another trip to Greece and Italy and areas around the Mediterranean in the spring of 2020. Yeah. And you might remember that in the spring of 2020, something else happened. Yeah. And so I didn't go. So, but luckily, because I'd written 80 Days to Elsewhere, which I'm now going to put down, because I'd written that book the year before, I'd been to Greece. I'd been to Italy. I hadn't been to Greece. I'd been to many areas along the Mediterranean. Yeah. So for the areas that I had been to already, I had some research material. And for the rest, I did travel by Google. As you do.
Isn't that amazing? Like you can go and find a place and do Google Maps and then do Street View. And then you can click forward and walk and look and say, okay, what's here? What's here? Yeah. But you also got the textures and the tastes and everything like that. It was
that's
cool.
Awesome. Thank you.
It was so cool. So I thought for sure you had, it's really, so I don't know how much of the story you want to give away. Do you want to give like a short little,
okay, so basically what this story is about is a young woman she thinks she's got it all. She's marrying this eligible bachelor in New York City. He's basically swept her off her feet. And so the morning she's going to taste possible wedding cakes, she gets a phone call and it turns out that her dad is in the hospital. And so when she goes to see him, he's had a very small stroke. They're called a TIA, which is a ischemic attack, I think. And anyway, he blows it off and says, well, it's nothing. She knows that it's something. And so the next morning when she goes to visit him, she finds he's checked himself out of the hospital, and not only that, he's left his medication on the table. And so because of this, she's so furious with her dad, who she sees as the most irresponsible, sort of a womanizing old dog. And he's always driven her crazy. And she just, in a fit of pique, she grabs the medication and she hops on a plane and she chases him down in Athens, Greece. And so this is the beginning of the story, and things conspire to allow her to stay. And so she ends up following her dad. Her dad is a classics professor, and he believes that he can make a statement about to prove that the actual journey that Odysseus took back from the Trojan War, which is documented technically by Homer in the Odyssey, but there may not have even been a person named Homer. But anyway, the retelling of the Odyssey, he believes that he has something to add to this, and he wants to do it before before this stroke comes back and takes him again.
He's feeling his mortality.
When this happens,
and it's like, but it was something that he had planned. Now, okay, so here's another one, because he is an old dog, But we all know somebody like that. Did you base it on somebody that you knew, or was it, or did he just start talking to you and you're like, oh, and then he tells you a little more and you're like, oh my good, okay, well, and then you were able to have a character like that because Gia's like, Dad, you know, you know what I mean? So you can have the balance of both.
Right. So the thing about it is that, yes, he, like, this is something that happens a lot. And I know that it happens to you too, is that the people that you meet in your real life inform the characters in your book. But the dad, whose name is Aristotle Costas, he jumped fully formed into this story. Yes. He had such a strong personality, and I kept having to rein him in because although he is doing he's doing his research, this isn't his story. This is Gia's story. And so it's a love story for Gia, but it's also a story about a girl and her dad.
Yes. And it was like, I think that was it, is that there is the love story element, but it's just as much, there's multiple layers, like there's multiple stories woven through. It's about love. It's about the love, like with her dad too. And in this kind of like, you know, how out of some of the worst, like, I can't believe this has happened, comes sometimes the greatest gifts. And I think in life sometimes, like, and I thought that was really quite beautiful about the book as well, is that in a way this like, gives her not just her dad, but she's able to, the different pace of life slows her into being able to listen to her inner voice as well. Yeah. So, and then there's her dad has a colleague, and I don't want to give away too much, but I was wondering, because there's the archaeological thing, and then there's the dad with the classic history, and then your daughter is an archaeologist. Yes. Were you able to pick her brains to get some of those things? Okay, so tell me how some of those conversations happen.
I'm quite sure.
Did you know also that there was going to be that, or did it just kind of start showing itself? So tell us all.
Yeah. It just kind of emerged, that one, but because she's an archaeologist and she's also married to an archaeologist.
That's right.
So they're a good resource for me. But I do have to say that anything that is archaeological in this book, if I've gotten it wrong, it is my fault. It is not their fault. Yeah. They gave me all the good information. But I just like the idea. So archaeology is a very interesting field, and it has changed a lot. Like, so many things have changed over, really, like, so rapidly over the past 10 years or so. And when archaeology used to be about, you know, digging a hole in the ground and finding the treasures and taking them back to, you know, put them on display, taking them away from the people, you know, who they may belong to. And archaeology has really changed a lot. And so I wanted to reflect that change in the characters in this book. And so these are characters who care about I had a conversation with my daughter. She's on her way here from Scotland. And so she's not, yes, too late for her to turn back. So she's on her way. And so she's not watching this show. So I'm going to actually talk about her, which I normally don't do a lot. But I remember one time when she was taking her degree, and she was working on a site, and they had to visit a crematorium, and she called me and she was really upset, and she really made it clear that she did not want me to be cremated when I, shuffle off this mortal coil. So I was not clear as to what her reason was. And in her mind, she felt that when you unearth remains of people who were here so long ago, it's your job, it's your responsibility to tell their story, to find the life that they had woven around them. So when you find, an artifact in the ground, the location of that artifact is super important, and it's called the context. And it's very much like writing, because for us, the context of the story is everything. And it is the same for archaeologists. So I just love the idea that there was an archaeologist who cared enough about the world that he was like offended by the fact that, you know, the Elgin marbles had been shipped away from, you know, I mean, they're called the Elgin marbles after Lord Elgin when they were the facade on a Greek temple. You know, it's so unjust. And so it was his
This
feeling.
is Dr. Malik. How do you pronounce his first name?
Yeah, Malik. Yeah, that's right, Raj.
And his first name is Rajneesh?
Yeah,
but they call him
Rajneesh.
Okay.
They call him Raj.
Yeah.
So the thing about Raj is that he cares about the setting and the people who once were there, and he honors them. And for me, that was an awesome way to show his character and to contrast his character with Anthony's character, who is the
fiance.
Gia's fiance. Yeah.
Yes, but also what I love about it, well, there's lots of things I love about it, but you have Raj, and you have Anthony, and you have the dad, and they're all three different kinds of male, you know, and I thought he was just like a great, like, I just really liked the balance of it, that you had that, and that also that Raj is that way, but that through his eyes, she gets a different understanding and view of her own father. So you know what I mean? And sometimes as a child, she's in her late 20s, but for me, like, even everybody who has parents, you see the parents through a certain scrim, and there's sometimes this point in life where that scrim sort of becomes more translucent or fades away, and all of a sudden you see another side of them that you didn't expect to see. It's such a beautiful book, Karen. You should be so proud. Like there's just so much in it. Yes, there is, like, it doesn't really even feel like there's the romance. Like, you could say, yes, it's romance, but you could also say it's like commercial women's fiction, and you could also say it's about family, or what is love, and then there's also, well, I don't want to give these spoilers, so I won't tell, but there's another story from way back that also is woven in, and it's just really beautiful. And you know what else? Devi, is that her name? Her best friend.
It's pronounced Davy. Yeah,
it's pronounced Davy. She's such a great character too.
Yeah.
She really shows up once or twice in phone calls or in advice, or, you know, but she's got, like, everybody is this whole, now it's just
so
like,
Davy is really important to me because, and to Gia, because otherwise, like, Davy exists so that Gia can tell her, like, bare her soul.
Right.
And so they have such a good friendship, and they're the sort of friends who tell each other everything.
Yeah.
And so when Gia, you know, you talked earlier about romance, and I am terrible at writing romance. I am a fake.
No, you aren't. This is a beautiful romance. If people like romance, they're going to love this book. But if people don't read romance, they're going to love this book. It's a good read, and you get to travel. Oh, yes. Okay. You were going to tell me something about Gia, but I've got to tell too. So don't.
Okay. All right. I was just going to say that Davy's is a nice foil for Gia, because Davy is the kind of friend, which is the best friend, who tells you the truth.
Sometimes what you don't want to hear.
What you don't want to hear.
But you know that you can trust them, and they love you. Yeah.
And so Davy has been trying to tell Gia the truth, and like, quite out telling her the truth, and Gia has not been willing to listen to it. And then slowly, over the course of the journey that Gia is on, she begins to actually hear her friend for the first time. She begins to understand, like, what Davy is saying, and so it's a nice balance.
It is nice, and I think sometimes I found with friends or sisters, if you say, look, these are the things I'm concerned about, in a way, it gives it subconsciously, it's like, then they're holding the worry, and you can be the other side and the defend of, no, you just don't understand, or he's not like that, or she's not like that, or whatever. Right. And when she had this distance and the space and the quiet, because following her dad, and the different, like, you know, because you're different time zones, it can throw you out of your, this is what I do kind of life. Then she starts hearing her own thoughts, not in just batting away what her friend's saying and her concerns. Yeah. And so then it's just like, there's just like so much growth. It's really, okay. There's one other thing I wanted to say. And then wait, are there questions? Oh, Fantastic, Tilly. Okay, I'll ask this one more question first, and then we can start asking questions.
Okay.
So the other thing that I just love, because she's a food
She's
blogger.
a foodie, yeah.
And she starts off, she's at Nosh magazine, and then but it was an internship. So then she's moving. So what I also wanted to say is that how you started each chapter, I was gonna say it's so delicious, but it's actually it's delicious in like I'd look forward to the starts of each chapter because it's a description of food or of how to make a certain drink or but all of it has to do with what's going on, what either just happened or a hint of what's to come. And how did you get, I mean, that's like, all of the pieces were so how did you come up with that idea?
And how did you
notice
that?
I loved it. It was like a little kind of, and there was kind of like a jaunty sort of but a funny wit to it too. And then you just go into the story. And I also was like, the ... I'm like, no, but I want to know the rest of the year. Or then rub my hands together like, ooh, something's coming up, So how did you come up with that? Was that a before thought, or did that happen as you were writing? You just started doing it, or did you add it after?
So I knew when I started writing the story, she was writing the article about New York fries. That's how the first one starts. And she's talking about buying fries off a food cart in New York City. Yeah. And she has to make it, peppy and sort of, smart alecky. And so I thought this is such a great way to sort of foreshadow what's coming next in the chapter. But
do you have that little description?
Yeah. Just
read it, because
it's really
actually that was the first one, right? Made me snort.
Yeah. Okay, so it starts chapter 1, Friday afternoon, New York fries, Gia Costas, Nosh, staff writer. And then the article starts. I like my fries like I like my guys, a little greasy, a lot salty, and soft on the inside. This recipe tastes hot off the street cart. And if you're a purist, I've got a quick and dirty ketchup concoction waiting for you in the sidebar. To feed 4, all you need are 6 large potatoes, Yukon Gold if you can get them, 5 cups of avocado oil, and a whole lot of finely ground sea salt. To begin, and then we've got the ellipsis. So
I never heard somebody describe they like their fries and whatever, like their guys.
Yeah.
Like salty, soft on the inside. I was like, oh my gosh.
So, but that I had no idea I was going to do this. So that's how I started this one. And then I thought, oh, that would be fun. But as you know, when I write a book, I don't really know what I'm doing, and I don't have an outline. I have more of an outline with the Ex Libris books than I do with my other books, as a rule. But I'm not great at writing to an outline, and so I just write from idea to idea, and so I did not know what I was going to do for each chapter. And so that was something that I retrofitted afterwards is to go in and find recipes that worked and that that might give a little hint of what was to come or what had just happened, or to give a little clarification on what had just happened, or and so it was kind of a fun thing to do. I like writing about, I like to eat, and I like writing about food. And this was super interesting for me because, I'm vegetarian.
I know, and there was lamb, and that's
lots of meat.
I was going to ask you. There's lots of meat,
and I was like,
how was that? Because I was reading, I was like, ooh, that sounds good. I thought, whoa, Casey's vegetarian. Casey Dyer is vegetarian. I wonder how that was, or did she just go off the vegetarian for 40 years bandwagon and dive into carnivorous life full-fledged?
It's just I'm not writing as Casey Dyer. I'm writing the story, but when I'm in Gia's head, and Gia is the daughter of a Greek immigrant and loves food and loves meat and loves fish and all the things that I don't eat. And so I had to make her I really wanted her love of food to shine through.
It did.
And so, it was really important to me that Gia be like a real human person and not, an impossible figure who can eat whatever she wants. And, she is strong and healthy and writes about food for a living and loves her body and is well as rounded as I could get in every sense of the word. And so I wanted to make sure that she loved every bite of food that went into her mouth. And so
I do too.
Yeah.
I really could relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and she did, and it was, and you did feel the love of the food and the descriptions, and that's, you know, like it reminded me of my sisters, because I remember when we were talking about Italy and going to Italy, and my sister Jen said, oh, the Italian leathers and the shoes and the purses and my sister Becky said, oh, the paintings, the art, the frescoes, and I was like, no, the food.
Yeah.
Because when I choose a place to go, I want to make sure that, like, it's a place where I love the types of food. So
yeah,
that was really
and
fun. We have a question, so I'll ask them,
okay.
and then we can go back to
talk more about food.
So Fantastic Tilly asked, since you ladies have both read each other's most recent releases, are there any parallels or similar writing techniques you used in An Accidental Odyssey and the Runaway Heiress? So
okay, so let's talk about the Runaway Heiress just
thanks
for
the question.
Yeah, thanks, Fantastic Tilly. So like for the Runaway Heiress, like that is a standalone novel. It's romantic suspense. Would you call it romantic suspense?
Yes, it's the romantic suspense.
Yeah. And so like when you're writing something that is so suspenseful, and this is heart in your throat stuff, reading this book, your heart is pounding by the end, because, you know, like everybody is on the run. It's just so crazy. And the bad guy is so bad in this one. He's Kevin. He's so awful. So do you plan this out ahead of time? Like I just talked a little bit about my technique, which is like, what's the next good idea?
Yeah. And then I'm like that. I try to plan things out, but it doesn't do. So I might have an idea of where I might be going to, but I don't know how I'm going to get there. And sometimes I will have an idea that this is where I'm going to, and this is what's going to be. And then it shifts. So with the Runaway Heiress, I didn't know. I placed several different things, but I didn't know until the guy was revealed to what it was going to be. And so that's how I do it. I've tried to totally map things out, but I kind of find my way as I go. And I might have a few things, like if I get an idea at night, I'll write it down, or if I'm, you know, just walking along, I'll write it down. But then I have them for what I'm going to go to. But then even then, sometimes it shifts because the characters take over, like your characters did. So I guess in a lot of ways, we're quite similar in our writing processes, except for, you know, you have to have a certain, if you're doing romantic suspense, you have to have how I do it is if I feel like it's starting to slow down, not in a good way, then I know I'm not keeping the suspense element going.
Right.
The romance element and the suspense element. Oh, somebody else asked. Lee asked, I've had the privilege of seeing your kitchen wall, aka this is for Karen, Casey Dyer, aka your plot outlining wall. Did you use the kitchen wall for this book?
Yes, absolutely. I'm in the living room right now. Yeah, my kitchen wall right now has, so first of all, it has a map of the world on it, and then it's got a map of the Mediterranean on it, and then it's got Post-it notes all over the map of the Mediterranean, and it's got thumbnails stuck in all over the place. So it's terrible for the wall, really. It's an abuse of a wall. But the way I look at it is that it's my kitchen wall. And so therefore, yeah. And it plays a pivotal role in the telling of the story. So, when you're
in your kitchen, then did it like, why did you decide to put on the kitchen wall? Was it like, I'm in the kitchen a lot, and so when you're sitting, you're cooking food, or you're daydreaming, or having a cup of tea, and then you're looking, you're like, wait a minute. And do you find yourself going over to there and writing, like you said, you put thumbtacks, do you put Post-its in too to write ideas of certain things?
Yeah, it's more retro outlining, if you can like sort of wrap your head around that, in that I write the story and then I try and fit the story, make the story work. And so I have to go back and take things out and put things in and move things around. And in this particular story, so with the Ex Libris stories, they are predicated on the idea that there is this company ex libris expeditions that for their clients will plan a travel journey that replicates a story or a great meal or an adventure that the client read in a book. And so with the first story, it was Around the World in 80 Days. And with this story, it's the Odyssey. And I don't know if you remember reading the Odyssey. I have now read the Odyssey again.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah. So the last time I read the Odyssey, I was in grade 11 and it was like pulling teeth. It was so terrible.
I didn't remember it.
Yeah, there is a new edition of the Odyssey that's out. So a new translation that was just done like about 2016, I think, by this young woman. First time a scholar who's a woman has done a translation, and it's so good. And it's so intriguing. And also the audiobook was done by Claire Danes. And Claire Danes, I tell you, no one can put a cry in their voice the way Claire Danes can. So when it is just beautifully told, and that really helped. But the Odyssey is all over the place. I mean, he crossed that Mediterranean a million times, and it is very disorganized. And so I couldn't obviously replicate the actual journey. And so, but I'm still constrained by the idea that this book exists and that my character in this story, Ari Costas, is determined to follow in the steps of Odysseus. And so there are some limitations on what I have to do. So I wrote the story and then I go into the kitchen, and I do a lot of my writing in the kitchen. That's why it's on the kitchen wall. While I was writing the story, my old dog had taken over my office, and he had taken the big chair in the office, and it was his room, not my room. And so, but he's gone now. He left in August. Yeah. And so now the new thing is that I need to clean out my office so that I can make it workable again. But so in the meantime, I do most of my writing in the kitchen. And so then after I would write the story, then I would go up and stare at the map and figure out, do they need to get to Sardinia, or, where are we going? What about the Isle of Capri? A lot happens on the Isle of Capri.
Yes.
And so it's a little teeny island, but like a lot happens there. And so I had to make sure that everything sort of worked retroactively.
And it had hints of the Odyssey as well, but I was like wondering, okay, how? But I have to say, like that's a pretty daunting book to dive into, the Odyssey. But your book isn't.
Oh, thank you.
If you want a fun Odyssey, and I love how you call it the Accidental Odyssey. And I was like, I wonder how this could go. And I start reading, then I'm like, oh.
Yeah, she definitely stumbles into this Odyssey. But the reason that that was such a fun book for me to work on, even though the Odyssey is incredibly daunting, is that in the past, I have found that the Odyssey is like all men, fighting, war, and, a few giants and monsters thrown in. And it was really fun to take the giants and the monsters and the men and turn them all on their heads and turn these sexist, misogynist tropes on their heads. And so like the sirens that are in my book are all, they're not beautiful women that are calling sailors to their death on the rocks. These are hot looking dudes with flashing their abs. And,
I didn't know like how much to tell, because I didn't want to give away stuff, because it was such a delight to come across the different things.
Yeah. And so that's fun, and so like, I hope for people who, maybe suffered through having to read the Odyssey like I did in grade 11, that they will way more enjoy the journey this time.
Oh yeah, for sure. 100%. It was fun. Okay. Let's see.
Okay.
Tilly MP4 asked, how was the process of making both your books?
No, I think it's progress.
Oh,
progress. But I'm not sure what Tilly MP4 means by progress. Like how did it?
I don't know. How was it? So did it feel like, so when you were writing the Accidental Odyssey, did it feel like you show the book? I wish I had my book. That we, BC, we've had this these floods and freeways closed, so mine didn't arrive. But I'm going to make Casey hold it up. Hold it up.
Look, this is the one I'm holding up right now.
No,
this is the Runaway Heiress. Okay. All right. Here's mine. Here's mine.
Yeah. So did you find you wrote from the beginning and went to the end, or did you? did you start like here and think that's the beginning, and then you realize, no, I need to go here? Or how did you do that?
Yeah, I never write at the start at the beginning and go to the end. In this case, the first scene that I wrote was the scene where she was in the office at Nosh on her last day of work, where Gia was in the office. That was the first scene that I wrote. But that actually is really rare. Like almost all my books, the first scene that I write ends up, somewhere in the middle of the book. And in this case, it was at the beginning, and so that was great. But I did not write it through to the end. I wrote the things. I always write the things that interest me, and the things that I think are funny, and the things that, like, this is a lonely business being a writer. And when you're sitting alone in your kitchen, staring at the map on your kitchen wall,
amusing yourself.
That's right.
Because I could feel you're like, this is funny.
Yeah,
like, when you write something, like I could just picture you typing and laughing. And they're like, oh,
my daughter,
the situations you put them in.
Yeah, my daughter says that she can hear my laugh in the background when she's reading my books, because I do. I have a juvenile sense of humor, and so the things that make me laugh, I always put them in the book, and they still make me laugh. But also, I put in the things that make me cry. And there are parts of all my books that I can't read out loud. If I'm doing a reading, I can't read those parts out loud, because it's like, it's like reading the Velveteen Rabbit. You get to a certain point and then you just choke up so badly you have to stop. You can't go on. And so because, and I know that you can speak to this as well, because your characters become so real, like they are real, right? They exist in their own world. And so when terrible or traumatic or even shocking things happen to your characters, you feel that as the person who's writing them. And we always write for our first reader first, and our first reader is ourselves, right? Yeah. And so we write the story for ourselves, and then we have to go back and look at it again and make sure that it will work for everybody, and not just for you. Yeah. But so to me, that's the most interesting part about being a writer, is that I put this story that is seen through my perspective out into the world. And then what I get back from the people who read my story, it always comes through their filters. So you have to be willing to let that story go, and it's not yours anymore. Once it's out there, it belongs to the people who are reading it. And so they will not have experienced the same things that you did as the writer. And so they will put their own spin on it, and it will have its meaning, a special meaning for them. And that, especially during the pandemic, this has just been such a nightmare.
I know, but you get to read this book and you're traveling. You're going to Greece, you're going to Sicily, you're going to these different islands, Capri, and so you get to travel. Yeah. So that's like the gift of this book too, is that you get to, but okay. Oh, speaking of the pandemic and being a nightmare. So like during the pandemic, some of my other writer friends were like, so you're, I'm writing this, I'm writing that. And they're like, are you putting the pandemic in? And everybody's like, heck no, or, not heck, but the other one, no way, but you did it in a way that it wasn't like, whoa, you did it in a way like, okay, here we're going, but it didn't, it just was, it worked. So good. Hats off to you, because everybody, it was like, it just was part of it, but it was in the background. So how were you struggling? Like, should I have any kind of just acknowledgement to it? There's hardly any in. So it's not like, oh, you're going to read it and but it's.
Yeah, she's masked in the hospital when she goes to see her dad.
Exactly.
She's masked on the airplane. Like that. Yeah, when she takes the airplane. But, I feel like I've read one of the, I didn't write a lot during the pandemic, because I was one of the people who have, had my soul crushed by the pandemic. But I read a lot, and one of the things that I noticed, even new books that I was reading, there were a lot of books that didn't address it at all. And I actually feel like this is an event that has been world changing. I think it's changed everyone's life who lives in the world right now. I don't think there's been anything like this in a long time. And I can't, as a person who writes about travel, I can't pretend that it doesn't exist, because it's something that's there. I mean, I mentioned earlier that my daughter and her family are coming to visit us, and like until last night, we didn't know if they could come. So the pandemic has changed everything. And so I that being said, I still feel like these characters have to live their lives. And so depending on the circumstance, and when they're on, when these characters are on a faraway a boat trip, and they meet the skipper of the boat, and she touches elbows with them.
It was just like little hints, or and also it felt safe to read it and to get lost in it and to not be scared, because there are a lot of times at archaeological digs, they're in, and it's just a couple people, and when they're outside, and so it really lends itself to it, because you're in a warmer climate, and you're so but I thought that was very, very well done, very tastefully done, and didn't make you feel like
well, it was something that I'm feeling it. We're all feeling it, right? So I had to address it, and I'm continue to address. What I have been working on are ideas for other Ex Libris novels, and in each of them, I'm having to find my way through this because travel is so central to the elements of these stories. And my stories, the stories that the ones that I write for grown-ups anyway, are still, you can totally tell that my immaturity shines through. You can tell that I started as a YA writer, because the adventure is so important to me. And I really like the adventure element of, you talked earlier about writing suspense and how important it is that the suspense is sustained. And for me, while these stories have other elements, the adventure element of the story is really important. I want it to be a story where you get swept up and taken away. And when somebody has had a terrible thing in their life, and they read your book and it takes them away, and then they write you about it, honestly, there is no better feeling. There is no better feeling in the world. And people are so dismissive of romance writing or genre writing of any description. And
no, they aren't. It just depends what people you hang out with.
That's right. That's exactly right. So choose the people you hang out with
wisely.
Carefully. Be careful about it, because these stories that sweep you away are important. And I feel so honored when somebody tells me that the story took them away from some terrible thing.
And especially now we're all kind of having to be more careful again. It's like, and to be able to just pick up something and read it, and it's about a quest, it's about family, it's about love, it's about friendship, love, real like love, what some people say is love, it's what you're supposed to love, father and daughter, and it's just complicated, and self-love,
self-love. That's really, that's at the core of it.
But really, also the travel. I feel like the places you went are like other characters in the book. They're just as important, and the food is another major character in the book. And of course, sometimes you'd write about something and be like, ooh, what can I cook that's kind of like that? What do I have for that sort of? Ooh, that sounds good. Can I have the rest of that recipe?
Yeah, for sure. I think we've got another question here.
Okay. You want to read it, this one?
Okay. Ania asked, are there any characters that reflect yourself in a way? Oh, okay. Well, every single character in every single book I've ever written all reflect myself because you're the writer. You put a part of yourself in all of them, including your worst villains, like including the scariest villains. And that's, I don't know, you speak about it. You have like such a good villain in Runaway Heiress, and such a good villain. He's so scary, but here's what's important. This is why he's not just like a villain who's twirling his mustache. He's a legitimate character who you are fearful of, because he believes that what he's doing is right. And so, like, how does he reflect you?
so I think I've been really lucky because in writing my romantic, well, in all of my books, but I've had a wide and varied life. So I've had access to a wide, varied and palette of people that have come in and out of my life throughout my childhood, but also throughout my adulthood. So you kind of know how people who are that way, whatever way the different ones are, you get into their head, you hear how they speak, you watch how they interact with people, you see how they justify, and so it's really interesting to me. And I remember my old acting teacher, Peggy, she had said, if there's ever a part where you have, when we were doing plays, we'd do characters, and there's someone I'd just be like, I don't get it, or I wouldn't feel connected, or I'd be like, no, oh, I don't want to play her. She'd say, the characters you have the most judgment about, that's because there's a little part of you that you are not acknowledging you have the capacity for. She said, your job as an actor is to be able to dive into the skin of everybody. And so that's what I do. When I'm writing, every character, now, of course, there's more characters that are more me, closer to me. Like I would say most of the women heroines, that they have a great part of me. Some of the guys do, some of the smaller characters do. And then it might be like, oh, I want to give her own story. So they all are part of me. And there's some characters that are a little bit more of me and some characters that are more of this part of me, but they're all part of me. And I do use real life experiences in all my books too.
Yeah, me too.
I won't necessarily say which ones. Great question, by the way. I won't necessarily say which ones, but yeah, some of the maybe perhaps more embarrassing things that happened to the women in the book have happened to me. Or, you might take something like, in some of your books, if you have somebody stalking you, I've had that, so then it's like, okay, well, so how does it feel in her skin? Well, how would it feel in his skin? And you do that. So yeah, they're all a part of us.
I love that. I love that because it's, often people will say, well, you can put your enemies in your books and,
oh, I do that too.
Kill them off. Yeah. Yeah. And I
just do the name by one concept.
Yeah. Yeah. I once put a character, my the worst evil character in my first series of books for kids. And right at that time, my sister and brother-in-law were journalists, and they were working for the Calgary Herald. And Conrad Black had come in and bought the Calgary Herald. And I actually had worked with him in a previous life. But so I named my evil character Conrad in this story just because I just thought, it's the perfect name. And then, but this just goes to show that by the end of the third book, this character has such a redemption arc that he's turns out to be a good person in the end. And and so like, maybe I was sort of wishing that on Conrad Black.
Like maybe sending that. I met him once at oh gosh, I think it was like an award show for something, for Bomb Girls or something, or some kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, ooh.
Yeah. 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 He's definitely an interesting
We were
character.
introduced and I just needed to take a couple steps back. I mean, he might be a perfectly fine person, but the person I met was not somebody I'd want to meet again.
Yeah.
And then I remember there's something else where I was like, oh, I'm going to go to this side of the room.
And you know what? He was a good character. He was a good jumping off point for a character. So this, this happens. And I know that you have done this too in your stories. And it happens and also like a lot of the funny stuff, a lot of the scary stuff. In 80 Days, there's a scene where the character crawls through a hole in the ground under the streets
of
Paris.
Was that the Paris? Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I actually did that just I don't know how it happened, but anyway.
Karen. Casey Dyer.
It was Casey Dyer. It was just a weird coincidental circumstance that happened that it was too good to not use. So this is what happens a lot of the time is that I have, things happen around me that were too good to not use. Yeah. There's a scene in Finding Fraser that takes place in a bar in Inverness that has a character in it who I literally had an experience, a conversation with the two characters that were in there, and but when I'm writing my main characters, I will often have work in things that I thought were funny or usually embarrassing, and just entertaining. And I work those in, but I never feel like that character is me. And so I know that after Finding Fraser came out, I had a bunch of people who thought that I was Emma, running off to find my Fraser. And I was like, whoa, this is a story here. And
I don't even want a Fraser.
Yeah.
The Fraser that she's talking about is the Fraser in Diana Gabaldon's books.
Yeah.
Right. And so
Jamie Fraser
gave me a marvelous blurb for that book.
Yes, she did. Yeah, she's a lovely friend. Diana is, she's like you in that she is a writer who loves to lift other writers up. And for me, that's super important in this line of work that we are in, because anyone who feels like they need to succeed, by crawling on the backs of others you feel bad for them. It just doesn't work that way. And especially with readers, where all writers are voracious readers first. And I know that's how you came to writing romance. I mean, you were writing books for teens, and you were writing memoir, but you turned to writing what you loved.
When I got where I felt like I could. Well, I never felt that I could, because I felt like, but those books are really fun, and I'd never be able to be good enough to write that. I mean, I write the whole literary book, but not that. So I'm so happy that I found that. Write what you write. Yeah. And everybody else say, write what you love. And my husband say, hun, why don't you write these? But you love them. I'm like, oh no, I wouldn't want to, but now,
and look how good you are at it. You are so good at it.
I love writing these books, because I feel like I love sitting down with a book. Like one of my, an author that I really like, Julianne Long, she has a new book that came out like a couple weeks ago, but I'm saving it. I'm saving it for when I really need it. I usually read it right away, but I'm like, no, I'm going to save it. So it's like, I was like, I love that kind of the anticipation in the book. And you get yourself a little bit of something to nibble on with popcorn or candy, and you're just going to be like, it's a rainy day and I have nothing I have to do, and now I'm going to read it all the way. So I'll probably read it after the grandchildren leave.
So for me, I'm kind of how it works for me is that because I am such a voracious reader, I justify it. So I say, okay, I'm a writer, so part of my job is reading all of these things, because I need to find out what the rest of the world is writing. And so in the end, that's my justification, so that I can just read all the time, right?
Yeah, I love reading. It's okay, we've got a bunch more questions. Okay. Well, not a bunch, but okay, Mike, and thanks for the question. Okay. If Ex Libris travel does not exist, it should. That's what I thought, Mike. I was reading it, like, wow, that would be cool if I could be like, I want to follow this book. Okay, awesome idea. I'd sign up. With my luck, though, the tour would be based on the Lord of the Rings or The Road. You're funny. Okay, why did you choose the Odyssey? So he wants to know why you chose the Odyssey for this one. I was curious about that as well.
because I wanted to go to Greece. Why else would you choose the Odyssey?
And then you didn't get to because of the pandemic.
And I didn't get to go because of the pandemic, but I'm going as soon as I can, for sure. Yeah. It's in the cards. I mean, that's why when I thought of this idea, so Ex Libris doesn't exist in Finding Fraser. It's a standalone novel, but Finding Fraser is still the story of a young woman whose life is such a mess that she decides that the only place that she gets comfort is in the reading her favorite book, which is Outlander by Diana Gabaldon. And so she decides to sell everything and run off and see if she can find a real life version of her book boyfriend, who is Jamie Fraser in the book. So she tours all around Scotland trying to see if she can, have any luck finding, her this book boyfriend. And so when I finished that story, it felt really finished to me. It didn't feel like there was a sequel that I wanted to write for it. And but when I thought, what do I want to write next? I love the idea of the travel, and travel is my favorite thing to do. And so it just seemed natural to me. I thought, how can I find a way to work travel into my book? And well, if I did, what would I write about? And I have always wanted to go all the way around the world. So why don't I just pick Around the World in 80 Days, and I'll just come up with a story. And it was one of those things where, a little miracle happens, and they bought my book. And so I was then able to write this story. And to me, I love the idea because when we read, I mean, I only have my little gentle pile of books behind me, but my house, basically when the earthquake comes, the roofs will be held up by all the books in piles everywhere. But, so many of my books are books about amazing journeys. And I just thought, like, who wouldn't want to recreate these journeys? Like, why wouldn't this be a brilliant idea for a company? And so Teresa Cipher came to me. So Teresa Cipher, who is in all my books. So originally,
she's like a kind of mysterious person.
Yeah,
she'll just appear, and she's very tall, and you're like, you don't know. I mean, her name's Teresa Cipher, but you don't know that perhaps what the gender, what she identifies. But she just kind of appears, and she solves problems. She's like a magical, all of a sudden. And I felt her more, the mystery, even in this one than the other. The other was she was starting and she was more human, but this one now you're seeing her through different eyes. She's got the company going, and she's, you just feel like she's hitting her stride.
I think I'm going to do some prequel works with Teresa, because Teresa Cipher, of course, means mystery. And so if
I didn't know that. She does feel that there's something mysterious about her.
Well, that's because her name is Miss Terry Cipher. So that's her name, like Miss Terry. Ms. Terry, Mystery Cipher.
You had to say it around 10 times before I got it, Karen.
So that's okay. So that's an example of one of the little Easter egg things that I write into the stories that I'm working on at midnight. And I just chuckle to myself, and I think, now, so Teresa came to me.
You made that chuckle sound like a little old lady, which is how I laugh.
Teresa came to me fully formed, wearing a sheath dress, and is very definitely a trans woman.
That's what I thought, perhaps. Very elegant.
But
like,
it doesn't
I've never attained that sort of elegance.
I know. And perfect skin and perfect makeup, and just looks brilliant. And so the thing about Teresa is that that's not the center of who she is. She is just she. And so her skill is being able to pull something out of nothing to create this company, and
this wonderful experience.
And then also she's kind of like the hand of God, who comes in, Deus ex machina, who comes in and saves the day periodically. When I need someone to come in and save the day, Teresa is the one that does that. And I just really love her. I love her attitude to life, and she really she in the first book it becomes quite clear that she really loves to gamble, and essentially the race that occurs between these two characters around the world is because she's made a bet on them, right? And so she's not like pristine and perfect.
No.
She's just a unique character, and I just really loved her. And so
and she's not major in the book. She's just
there. She's part of the backstory, right? She's part of the backstory. But to answer Mike's question, why did I choose the Odyssey? Well, I chose it because, first of all, I really hated the story when I was growing up and was forced to read it. And so I wanted to do a better job of telling the story that was an adventure of touring around the Mediterranean, and not at all trying to step into create any kind of presumption here, but just for the fun of it.
It's very fun.
The idea was that it would be a fun story. And then some of the you know, you mentioned earlier, there are several storylines that are woven through here, and some of the storylines that were woven through just emerged out of the location, right? Because the story is set in these absolutely beautiful places, but it's got, people are the same everywhere, and so finding epiphanies. You don't have to be in Greece to have an epiphany about your life or the experiences you've had, but you know, it doesn't hurt.
Well, I mean, and you get to travel, and especially during the pandemic, it's kind of nice. But I remember somebody once saying, you know, you can move, but the skies, it's going to be the same sky.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
like,
for sure.
But sometimes you can move, and well, that's actually not true. I mean, it seemed really true at the time, and they said it in a much more profound way. But then I'm thinking about it. I'm thinking, no, because if you're in a really bad situation and you move, you can be like, okay, where you get stuck in like I remember when we moved schools, and I'd be like, okay, I went down that road, and that I can see now that road's leading to just really bad things. And so I'd just be like, okay, that's not who I am. And I'm gonna try this now, you know, and until I found who I was. So sometimes moving can, because then you don't have the people who maybe have grown up with you all the time, their expectations of who you are or who your family, or so sometimes that can actually help. Because I was gonna say nothing changes but the sky. And then I thought, oh, well, for some people, it might actually be helpful to be like, no, and then be like, okay, that's what I found characters in my acting helped with, is that sometimes I would learn from their challenges, like, oh, they did that. And okay, I don't want to do that. And I would learn not to do that. So you can do that with your characters or with yourself, and you can change, and you can say, okay, I really didn't like who I was starting to become, and I'm going to start fresh. Okay, we've got another question.
Actually, I think they're telling us that we need to stop talking.
Okay, there's one more. Okay, Tilly MP4.
Marissa, you need to come on and tell us when you want us to stop talking.
Okay, we're nearing the 10 minutes.
I think we're nearing.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like 8 o'clock their time. So it's only 6 o'clock our time. So we could talk all night.
I'll just keep on talking.
Okay, well, there's one more question here. So why don't we deal with this one question and then we'll wrap it up. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay, so this goes out for both you ladies. In the beginning of making of the books, how did you feel? Oh, that's interesting. How do you feel when you start a book, Miss Meg Tilly?
When I'm trying to find a book that I'm starting, like when I'm trying to find and I'm feeling around, I'm a little nervous. And I also feel a little daunted, like, I don't know how to do this. And how did I do the other books? And is it gonna be? And then there's this moment where somebody starts, you all of a sudden get an image, or somebody starts talking to you and you just jump on it. And once you find a character's voice, then it's like, oh, you start feeling a little like, maybe you're still scared because you think I've got to do, 300, 320, 360, 300, whatever pages. That's a lot, double space. But at the same time, you start getting this kind of like, when things start happening and you're in the beginning, you're just kind of feeling around, like, it's like how I cook, like, oh, I'll put this in and this, but it tastes weird. No, that doesn't. Okay, what if I put a little cinnamon? I mean, I know this is savory, and you start adding, and then pretty soon you're like, oh, this is tasting good, and now I'll make this to go with it, and so it's like that, but in bigger, because a book takes a long time to write and rewrite. So in the beginning, I'm scared. I'm a little like, and I'm a little overwhelmed. Like, I don't know if I can do this, and then I just dive in and start writing, and then eventually something comes up that feels real. And, what about you?
I don't know, I don't think I feel scared, but I don't ever sit down and think I'm going to write a book now. I never think that. I just have an idea, and then, or I see a person's face, or I feel like there's a circumstance, there's something that's wrong, and I need to just write that out. And so usually I have no idea what I'm doing. I just start the story, and
so when
write
it's blank, though, to get that first start the story, because once I start, then I'm
me
but
too.
Before, like when you're trying to find the
story. but
or you have so many ideas.
Yeah, you know what? The story always finds me. I have never I've never not been able to find the story. And part of that might be the way that because I always have a million things on the go, and I have like ideas in the background. And so but I never have had to go looking for a story. I don't know that's wrong, because I never have to go looking for this spark that starts the story. The story itself, I often, really struggle to find my way through it. But once I get going, once I get a toehold in the story, then, a story that I have been working on, it's about superhero librarians that I have not been able to sell. But this story opened for me with this young woman who looks out and realizes that she is dangling from the edge of a cliff. And I just love the idea of starting a story with a character who is on a cliffhanger, because the cliffhanger is how you end a story. It's not how you start a story. And how did she get onto this cliff? And how is she going to make it up the face of this cliff? And is she what's going to happen next? And why did she even get there? And she's wearing her librarian clothes, and like they're covered in dirt. And how did this happen? Okay, so that's what happened, right? I got the image of this young woman dangling from the side of a cliff and having to pull herself up, and she's cold, and it's icy cold, and she's getting sleet. It's hitting her in the face sideways. And to me, that as soon as I had that and I started writing that, bang, we're off to the races. Right. So it's exciting. It's exciting
when you get the image or the voice or but when there's that, like you finished a book and then you're facing the thing and you're like
the blank page.
Yeah. And it's like, okay, what am I going to write about? And then I'll get sparks, but sometimes I'll get sparks and I'll go down that for 100 pages or 40 pages or 60 pages. And I'll be like, that's just a spark, but it's not going to be a story.
So what do you do with those? What do you do with those? Do you?
I put them aside.
You put them aside, right?
But the problem is, Casey Dyer, it's that I lean on it because it's hard, because I want to say the other. The problem is I've got, the floppy disk that I no longer have a computer that can do. I've got so many manuscripts on those. I've got the little things that you insert that, whatever the zip files. I've got, and then I've got so many stories, and I've got handwritten ones, like short stories that I can't read the ink on anymore. And I was wondering if I should just toss them all, because I'm never going to go back to them, because I always come up with like new things. But I actually am in that forest fire, like this. Okay, this, no, that's not okay. Well, what about, so I've got several going, and I just don't know which one's going to be the horse that's going to break out of the herd right now. Yeah.
So like you've got a few on the go right now, and you just dabble in each of them until
I'm writing, and then I'm like, I'm at this point where I'm like, I'm not in the, here we go, off to the race. I'm in the, like, oh man.
Still, I feel like knowing your style of writing, like you're such a disciplined writer, right? Yeah. So you sit down and write your pages, like, and then sometimes
every day, but not for this holiday period.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, I know, because you've got your grandkids there, so that's good. So
Come the new year.
I don't know if we've answered all these questions, but
yes, we did. Thank you, everybody, for giving us questions. That's really fabulous.
Yeah, it was really nice. Yeah, it was great, and it was great to just sit and talk with you. We never get to see each other. We don't live very far apart. We live in the same province, but life.
When we lived close, we could meet up a couple times a week for big muddy tromps through the woods.
We have done that. We have done that.
Talking about everything. Yeah. Our children were still in school then.
That's right. Yeah. Both of us have kids that have, learning challenges, and so that was I think we probably bonded over that to begin with, and more even than both being writers. So so. But here we are. We're still doing it. So anyway, I don't know where Marissa has gone. I don't know if she's coming back or.
We're nearing the 10 minute to 8 mark.
But that was like 15 minutes ago. So we should probably just say thanks to everybody. And
Oh wait! I can end it without hopping on. Smile.
So she doesn't need to come back.
I thought she was. Okay, so
I thought she was too. Yeah.
Yes. Hold up your book again, Karen. Okay. Thanks, Casey Dyer. Sorry,
Casey Dyer is holding up her book.
Wait, I can't
Hold
see
on,
it.
hold on.
So if you want a copy of the Accidental Odyssey by Casey Dyer, go to Love's Sweet Arrow or Sweet Love's Arrow, Love Sweet Arrow.
Love Sweet Arrow.
The links below, and you can get, or if you want the Runaway Heiress, right here. But I think a lot of you already have it. Then you can get it below, and you get a bookmark and a signed book plate and a little button of some sort. And I don't know, but yeah, so that's cool.
Yeah, it's very cool. I have to say that the reason I'm holding up my phone is that I listened to the Runaway Heiress as an audiobook. And yeah, and she does a really good job. Your narrator, who's now I can't find her name.
I had it before because I remember choosing her.
I'm actually going to for my blog, I'm actually going to talk to all my narrators of my books. I haven't heard an Accidental Odyssey yet narrated, but apparently it's out in so I'm really excited to hear it because I'm very excited. I got to choose the actor who
I know, isn't that fun?
So fun. It's so
different. Then you're nervous too. Like I don't want to listen to it because you imagine them talking in a certain way in your head, but then when if you like audiobooks, the narrator on The Runaway Heiress that does a really good job. I've had a lot of my readers have written into me and said that they thought she was fantastic. Yeah, and I agree. I wish I had, like, I don't have her name right up on the front, but
I might be able to, just a sec, I might be able to pull it up with the
because she did a really bang up job. And so did the producer of it. They did a really good job.
Does Linda Korn do your books?
Yes, she does normally, but this time she was having a family member was having a medical issue, so I had another one. And I'm so bad at names. All my tea timers know that, so it's no reflection on. But anyway, my dog is growling right now. I have to. This is Marissa. My dog is growling right now. I have to stay muted and off. LOL. Oh yeah,
so that's Marissa. So we're gonna just wave and say thank you to everyone for coming.
Thank you so much.
And listening to us blather on about writing, but we warned you, right? So and hopefully even if you don't read our books, please go out and find something good to read over the holidays and take yourself away. Do something, have a magical read. And we'll say thank you very much, and we'll say goodbye.
All right. And